All right. Give it a couple seconds here before we actually say hi to people, because that's a delay. The delay is a thing, right?
It is a thing. It's completely a thing. I've started talking before in my interviews, and then somebody's like, "Yeah, so it was like cut off
Right at the
weirdly."
beginning. Yep.
Yep.
Yep. But you gotta fill the very beginning with something, because otherwise the replay looks weird.
Right. Hello, replay viewers.
Hello, replay
We
viewers.
appreciate you.
All right. All right. Well, welcome to my channel. My name is Sarah, and with me today I have Tori from Tori Talks. You want to introduce yourself real quick?
I'm Tori from Tori Talks. And
And what do you
I'm
do?
I'm a booktuber, author, mom. Insert list of jobs here.
Yes.
But yeah, I run the channel Tori Talks, where I talk about fantasy. I talk about a smattering of other things, including anime, manga, film, other genres besides sci-fi and fantasy. And I have a cat who is coming to join me. So, and this
which
is
one is it?
Novia.
Nobers. Excellent. Oh, I love that sweet face. Is she purring?
Yes, she is. Had to check.
Had to check. Yeah, she's pretty quiet, isn't she?
You cannot hear her purr at all, except for sometimes when she's really happy, she starts making this very subtle, like, wheeze sound. That's the only way you can tell.
She's such a little old lady.
She is a little old lady.
Yeah.
Hi. Say hello
Yep.
to everybody.
Oh, hi, Nobers. Aw. Don't you just love animals?
That depends on the moment you ask me. Yes, I do.
Look at that. Look at that tail sticking up. It's fabulous.
Yep. Oh, she's gonna sit with me. I'm wearing
Okay.
all black, of course. As soon as I wear all black, my cats are like, "Hey."
Yeah. Well, all right. So, obviously, so we've been best friends for a long time. So there was a myriad of things that we could have chosen to talk about.
We could literally have a 5-hour live stream without breaking a sweat.
Oh yeah, probably. Yes. So narrowing down the topic for today was a little bit of a brain scratcher. So, but I thought it would be fun to talk about just how art kind of influences or inspires your writing process a little bit. Anything where art is involved within the writing process, because obviously you can have it from the beginning for inspiration and concept, and then all the way to the end result with marketing with your cover or like social media graphics. Like you have art all the way from the beginning to the end that could fit in there. So I'm curious, for you personally, do you feel like art enhances your writing, and how so?
Yes. So kind of like where it starts, and obviously concept art is something that when it's personal to your story, that's when things really start to get exciting.
Mm-hmm.
But prior to that, even being able to put together mood boards on Pinterest and to kind of start collecting things that kind of inspire you as you're going.
Oh,
And
Pinterest is a rabbit hole, though, isn't it?
it's so bad. Like my current work in progress Pinterest boards, I mean, it's like I have so many subfolders and just so much stuff in there. So I think letting art's kind of a collaborative process anyway, because even if you look at writing, like writers are inspired by other writers, are inspired by stories sometimes that have gone back thousands of years, etc. And then you put the art with it for the covers or even like the performance aspect of like narrating or storytelling when people were and are telling stories. There's so many different ways that you can collaborate between different art forms, and I think that's part of what makes it so cool.
Yes.
So
Yes. I love, like, I think that's probably one of my favorite things too, is the collaborative effort that comes in, because like, I can make art for myself, but it's way more fun to collaborate with a person and bring that vision to life. And I would assume that it's exciting for you as well to have that experience, to see your creations in your brain come to life.
Absolutely. Well, and that's one of the things that for me is really frustrating, because I see the story and the scenes and the characters sometimes not as much, but oftentimes very vividly in my head. And so then one of the beautiful parts, and I realize I'm in a very unique and lovely position of having a best friend who's an illustrator. Hi, Anitha. Is getting to see someone else bring that to life. Almost is its own kind of motivator to keep building the world, because it's so cool to see it step off the page and into a more visual art form.
Yes.
So I love that part of it. And I love, one of the things that is fun about finding an artist that you can work really well with, not that I would know, but one of the cool things about that is that oftentimes, like when we're concepting, brainstorming, all of that kind of stuff, and I'll just kind of word vomit, here's what I think is in my head. And then you scribble for like an hour, and then you have something that ends up looking more like I wanted it to, but I didn't even realize that's what I wanted. I'm like, oh, that's even better. So like, if you can have a ongoing relationship with an artist to collaborate with, I mean, obviously I'm going to advocate for that, because that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, I feel like, and that can be a challenge as well, trying to find an artist or writer on the opposite end for me that you click with, because there have definitely been times where I'm working with an author, and it's like the things that they're saying just aren't really coming together. So it is definitely finding kind of that sweet spot of artist and writer where they can work together and collaborate well.
Right. Well, because for you, I would assume, like, you want to be able to bring that author's vision to life, but you also want to be able to breathe your own artistic sense into it at the same time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love the idea of bringing someone's character to life, but like you said, when it comes back and it's like, oh, it's better than what I thought, it's like, I want to be able to exercise the skills that I have built up and say, okay, I think I understand your vision, but what if you tried this? You know?
Yeah. Yep.
So
absolutely.
So then that leads me to what kind of art, I guess, is most exciting for you? Like, is it like characters, environments, weapons, like all of the above, like things that you feel actually aid the writing process?
Yes.
Yes.
For me, because, well, and this kind of goes back to, I'm the same when it comes to reading and writing, and that is, I'm insanely character driven, like to the point where if you have a subpar plot but you have incredible characters, I will love the book. Like, that's 100% how I am as a reader. And as a writer, that's one of the areas that I've focused really hard on, is learning how to be a plot author as well, because I know that obviously is a very important part of the story as well. So when you can have that marriage of both and have a really good, plot with the amazing characters, then you've really got something special.
Yes.
I would say the character art for me is the biggest one, to be honest, because getting these characters are, my book children, and I adore them all so much. And so
book babies, gotta love them.
They're book babies. So like, getting to see them kind of in the flesh in a way makes them so much more real, because they're already very real to me. But seeing them, and not just someone else's artwork from a different franchise or a different story, but actually that character, the way that I see them in my head, or have been brought to see them based on the artist's sensibilities, is just, it's pretty cool. So that, it just kind of builds that whole, it really adds fuel to the fire, I guess, is kind of how I would view that, because it's awesome, and I could gush about it for ages. But
yes,
I love seeing my characters in the flesh. It makes me so happy.
Yeah, and then, so do you venture into some other kinds of art for, like, I guess, and also, do you feel it's more for mainly inspiration that you really love it? I guess
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of two answers to that. One, yes, the artwork it's kind of that the phrase, write what you love, right?
Yes.
I need to love the story before anyone else can, because if I don't love it, then
Mm-hmm.
that's not going to come through the pages for the readers to love it. So I need to love, like, get that artwork so that I can keep building that story and get more and more and more excited about it and
Yes.
do better at it and
Yes.
be able to envision it in my own head so that I can give that to the readers when they're going through it. And the second thing is, it's a cool way to then, for the readers on the other side, give them, hey, your favorite character, like, this is what they look
Mm-hmm.
like, and this is, that kind of stuff. It's a very cool, like, two-sided benefit, I think.
Yes. So, at what stage of writing do you feel like you want to see something? See a visual? Is it like, do you need it right away, like you have something in your head, or do you kind of feel like you need to get to know them a little bit just from writing a few scenes?
That is a really good question, and I feel like I have two answers for that one too.
Okay.
There's the answer that is my impatient self who wants I want, like, the minute that brainchild is in my head, I want a picture of it, and that's one of the
Yes.
reasons why I go to Pinterest right away and start gathering things that I'm like, ooh, yep, that and that. Yep, that one looks kind of like I'm gonna put that in here. Um,
Yes.
but I do think, because even with the manuscript that I'm working on right now, there is a period of growth where you do get to know your characters and you have to, figure out who they are before you can bring them to life, I think, in the way that they're going to appear to your readers, if that makes sense. So
Yes.
as much as I would love, like, the first minute I have this character in my head, I'm like, Sarah, draw a picture of it. But I think there's also something to be said for giving it some time to grow and percolate.
Mhm.
And that's where I think you can utilize different types of concept art too, because you've done
Yes.
some great, like, 5-minute sketches. And I'm like,
Yes.
great, that's a great place to start. We'll, like, flesh it out later.
Mhm.
So,
Absolutely. And, like, I hope you know too, like, even as, like, the early stages as, like, you collect Pinterest boards and whatnot, that is extremely helpful for an artist just to serve as a mood board and understand, kind of the overall vibe that you're going for this character, because the way they dress, the way they carry
yep.
themselves, like, there's so much more than just, "Oh, they have black hair and blue eyes," kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things when I pull pictures for characters on Pinterest, the visual is somewhat important because I do have a visual in my head for each character to some degree. It's usually not as specific as I think a lot of people might think it is.
Right.
But the expression for me and the eyes, like, the things that really give you an insight into that person just from an instant visual,
Mhm.
are that's really what draw me in. There's a character
Yeah.
in my manuscript right now that wears a mask, and so having his eyes be a focal point and really convey a lot of emotion, where he doesn't have the full use of all of his expressive features to do that. The eyes are going to matter a lot in those character sketches, so
Mhm. I know you've talked about that a lot with me
I can't wait.
even. We'll see if I can do it justice.
I'm sure you
Um,
will.
we'll see, we'll see. I'm not gonna say anything for sure. Set your expectations low. But, but I agree, I love the idea of the expression because I feel like the expression says a lot about the character.
Hmm.
You know, it's, even if you don't give, like, a physical description in a book, it's like you can still get a visual image for, like, the way, like, the things that are going through their head. Are they really prideful and, like, confident in themselves, or are they
Hmm.
a bit more shy and reserved and whatnot? What kind of things are challenging for them? All of that can play into that visual image.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and it's something so simple, like, if I have a character, which I do in this book, that's very cheeky and mischievous, and he's a bit of a wild card. That
yes.
that little eyebrow tilt, the little, like, smirk on the, like,
Yes.
it goes, those little tiny details go so far into projecting the kind of character that they are.
Right, and I mean, and it's interesting too, because in so many ways you have art and writing, and there's so many different aspects to it, but they're both forms of storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
So you can convey a lot of things in an image that might take you 2 pages of a book to describe.
I was actually thinking about that because I wrote a scene 3-4 days ago where there was a dance.
Okay.
And I don't think I've ever written a dance before
Yeah.
that I can remember. And that was really hard. And I was imagining in my head, like, how much easier, like, I was imagining the film version of it in my head and thinking,
Yes.
oh my gosh, this would be so much easier and so much, like, faster to project to the reader
Mhm.
in film or visually than it is in writing. And so there are certain things that I feel like that concept art really does so much to or the illustrations inside a book really do a lot to kind of boost the narrative.
Yes.
So
Well, and it's interesting that you say that, because especially for something like an action scene, I'm actually taking an art course right now that is talking more about that movement.
mm,
And um, some some animators and illustrators will actually draw several frames of
yeah,
one fluid movement and choose which one they want based on the story they want to tell. Is it the beginning of the movement or is it the end of the movement? And like
yeah,
those two can give you such a difference in the overall vibe of what you're telling.
right.
So it's fun.
Well, and I think it's so fascinating to me. You know, we see all these special editions of books that are coming out with all these amazing illustrations in it. And how do you go through a book
And
that's
pick.
and pick what scenes that are
Yes.
going to have the biggest impact?
Yes.
It's crazy.
Absolutely. So, um kind of in that it's not really the same vein, but I'm going there anyways.
It's fine. You can make it a segue even if it doesn't fit at all. It's
this
fine.
is this is totally not
Segueing
related,
nicely
but we're
into
yes. So are you drawn to any specific style of art, or does it vary based on what you're looking for?
I think it varies in my world as a writer. You know, you guys as artists work a lot with texture and color palettes and all of that kind of stuff. And I would say, for me at least, that writing is similar. Each story has its own texture, each story has its own kind of color palette. Even the characters have kind of their own kind
Mhm.
of color feel and texture to them. So with the book I'm writing right now, I've been really drawn to a lot more of the harsh, kind of sketchy sort of artwork, because
Yeah.
I'm writing about more kind of tribal era warriors. And you know, it's a very war filled society sort of.
Mhm.
And so a lot of that harsh world and the harsh lines of the people in it,
Yes.
I'm drawn more towards those kind of visual elements as well.
Yes, well, and that makes sense, like, to have an art style that matches
Hmm.
the I guess the maturity level almost
Yeah,
of what you're going for. Because I mean, obviously, if you have war and, like, some very hard
dark.
set yes, dark things, you probably don't want, like,
The really
cartoony
smooth faces and yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, like, I like what you talked about though with like the textures and stuff like that, because texture can almost portray like that grittiness,
Yes.
like grim sort of
The,
thing.
the
Grim.
grim the grim atmosphere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Awesome. So when you have custom art made, what are you hoping to achieve? Are you ever afraid that you're going to be disappointed by the result, or are you excited to see a different perspective?
Um I feel like I should have easy answers for these questions, but I don't. I think again, that kind of goes back to when you're looking for an artist and you're thinking about, you're looking at the visual style. And like I mentioned before, with what I am drawn to right now with the book that I'm writing specifically, I'm going to be looking at artists who have that texture, have that feel that I think will
Mhm.
match well with the book. So that's partially on me as an author to choose a collaborative artist to work with
Mhm.
that I know has the sensibilities already to
Yep.
create something that I think is going to fit really well with the narrative.
Mhm.
I think there's always a bit of trepidation, I guess, when
Yeah.
you're waiting to see that art piece. You don't know what it's going to look like, and you don't know how well you were able to translate your ideas from words into the artist's mind.
Yes.
Because I feel like that's honestly the hardest part.
Sure.
And
That's totally fair.
and that's where mood boards, I think, are helpful,
Yes.
because you can kind of say, here's like a general vibe that
Yep.
I'm really kind of gravitating towards for this project.
Yes.
I mean, I'd
Yep.
be lying if I said I wasn't nervous every time I know I'm about to get a concept art piece and see it for the first time.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but but there's a lot of excitement with that too, and it's always fun for me. Like if you and I both go to the same movie, say you and I both go and we watch Lord of the Rings,
Mhm.
both of us are going to come out of that experience with
A
very
different, yeah.
different. I mean, we're gonna resonate with certain parts of the story more. We're gonna like maybe have different favorite characters. We're gonna notice different details. So it's
Absolutely.
always cool to me with readers, and artists would fit into that category too. Once that story goes outside of me, I'm really curious to see what things other people pull out of it, and
Yeah.
what inspires them from the words that I've written, because it's not going to
Yeah.
be the same as it was for me.
Right. Right. So then in respect to that, like I feel like as an artist I've experienced kind of like there's two extremes to
Mm-hmm.
people who ask for art. You either have the people who are like, "Oh yeah, do whatever you want," kind of giving you that blank page syndrome almost. And then you have the opposite side where it's I want this, 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 and this has to be perfect, and this has to be perfect. Where do you feel like you fall on like that scale? I guess say like 1 to 10 kind of thing, with 1 being really loose and 10 being really stringent.
With you, my answer will be different than it would be for a different artist.
Sure.
But part of that is because again, it's a very unique situation where you know me as a person and as a writer so well at this point that
Yeah.
I don't feel like I can just be like, all right, Sarah, here's the mood board. Here's the like bit that I wrote about this character.
Yes.
Here's a couple maybe details that I really like want to focus on.
Yeah.
And after that, I'm like, here you go.
Yes.
It's difficult. I think especially I had a experience working with another artist like I think almost 10 years ago now.
It was a while ago.
It was
I
a while
remember
ago.
that.
Incredible artist, like absolutely incredible artist.
Yes.
Who I was working on characters design illustration with her, and she absolutely loved what she ended up with. But we went through 2 stages of edits, because the first round I didn't give I think enough to her to work with, and so when she sent me back the first draft, I was like, not quite.
This is not what I had in mind.
And again, that was my first experience working with someone that I didn't know personally.
Right.
And
Right.
as a hired artist. And so we went back and I paid her for another round of edits, because I realized going back, I was like, okay, I really didn't give her like enough. She did great with what I gave her, but what I gave her wasn't the right, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So I would say with a different artist that I would try to give them as much detail as I could, but make it very clear to them, like, here's all the things that are really important to me in this piece. Here's as many specific details, if you're designing a character, as many specific physical details as I can give to help.
Yeah.
But also make it clear to them somehow that I want to see what based on these parameters, what your interpretation of that is. Because what I don't want to do, I wouldn't want somebody coming to me, like when I send a book to an editor, I don't want them coming back and trying to change my voice. Changing the story and fixing pieces of it is good, but trying to completely take my voice out of it is what you don't want. And I think it's similar from what I would guess from an artist point of view. I don't want to take your voice away from the piece as an artist. I still want people to be able to look at that and say, that's a Sara art piece, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Which, I think every artist is going to preserve some of their own style,
Mm-hmm.
no matter how specific the details are.
Right.
Um, but at the same time, um, and this is something I've noticed a lot with. Sorry, I don't know if people can hear my dog. My
It's
dog's
fine.
barking in the back.
I have kids in the background. We're fine.
We're professionals here.
We're professionals.
But I think the difference with that though is, as an artist, when you hire me, I am providing a service.
Right.
So as much as I would love to do my own thing, it's like in the end, I do kind of have to take your input over my own. So it is a fine balance, because I do love the ones where I do get the freedom to experiment and try things and stuff and really stretch myself. But understanding too that that's when people come to me with a vision, that's not my priority.
Right.
To express my own preferences and whatnot. And I actually took another art course on conceptual development for visual art and whatnot. And the amount of research that this guy did before he even started, and even like the amount of thumbnail sketches that he did just to experiment with the pose and the perspective and the scale. It was actually a David and Goliath kind of scene where he did specific thumbnail sketches for David, and then he went and he did like several for Goliath, and then he did several different renditions for the scene as a whole. And you study the style of armor, you style like everything, the landscape and geography, just to get to one single image.
Yeah.
So like there can be so much added into a single scene that if the author can provide that side of things to where, I mean, you're almost doing some of the work for us by providing that detail, so we don't have to figure out like, okay, what time period am I in?
Right.
What's the world building like? How do I make this look realistic and not some cheesy like, I'm just gonna throw a dragon in there because, and then find out like, oh, there's no dragons in this book.
No dragons. Well, and it's funny because it's hilarious to me how much art and writing, like visual art and writing, overlap as far as the things that we do.
Yes.
Because I literally put a dragon motif in the palace in my manuscript. And one of my writer friends was like, this is really cool. Are there dragons in this world? And I'm like, oh my gosh, there aren't. You're right. Like, so I took it out and I put something in that, fits with the world and makes sense with the whatever. But it was the same thing where you're sitting there and you're like, sometimes you have to backtrack a little bit. And even like, looking at the illustration and doing the different scenes and looking at the different angles and the different characters in it and the landscape and all the things, we kind of do that where like you'll look at a scene and you'll write it from this angle and it's not quite right, so you back up and you delete that, and then you write it from a different angle and it's better, but it's not quite, so it's kind of that same sort of like approach, just with different mediums.
Oh, I remember you joking about this, like about what people would think if they could see your Google search like history.
Oh, yeah.
And like it is not just writers. Artists have like the image search. Sometimes my husband looks over my shoulder and he's like, "What are you looking at?" It's like, I need a reference. Just chill.
Yep. I'm a writer. I promise it's fine.
Yes.
Well, and I even realized, like, this was kind of a funny thing, but for a while I had my Amazon wish list under all my videos. I had the Writer's Guide to Violence or something like that in there. And I remember after a while I was looking at my Amazon wish list and I was like,
maybe
I feel like this is one that I'm not going to put in my Amazon wish list just because it feels weird to have this in here.
Yes. Oh, that's funny.
Which, like, it's important to know how to write these things well or draw these things well, but it definitely makes for some interesting Google searches and things. Yeah.
Yes. Alrighty.
Oh my goodness,
Oh.
we have all sorts of people showing up.
Oh my goodness. Let's see. We got, oh, hi, Alan.
Hey, Alan.
We got
What's up?
Joanna. Hello.
Hey, Joanna.
Google. Google
Right?
definitely thinks I'm a freak. Yes.
It's so true. It's so true.
Oh,
Like, I'm
fabulous.
surprised that sometimes the FBI doesn't show up to random writers' houses and be like,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You know
y'all
they're
okay?
watching.
In the bushes outside, like, are these people okay?
Do you need help?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So, see, we have
Sorry,
totally.
I
We're rabbit trailing all over the
I do
place.
that.
I help. So, I mean, again. Oh, hang on, just a second here.
It is very unlikely that we would get through a
I
live
am
stream
I
without
am
rabbit trailing.
extremely sorry. My husband is not here, so I'm on child duty. So I am going
Mom
to.
boss.
I know. So I am going to be right back. It'll be
I will
very brief.
entertain the crowd with something. I'll juggle or something.
Okay, fabulous.
Yeah, it's going back to that. It's very unlikely that Sara and I would ever get through a full live stream without quite a few rabbit trails. She sent me the list of characters of questions earlier, and I looked through it and I was like, "Yep," and I guarantee we will probably talk about double that amount of topics sometime in the live stream. So, and also, guys, feel free if you have questions or commentary on anything art, fantasy, writing related, feel free to throw it in the comments. Derek says, Tori, sorry if you already mentioned this, but how did you come up with what you wanted for your cover? That's actually a great question. And this is one of the areas where I really appreciate having a collaborative relationship with the artist that I'm working with, which is usually Sara. But it would work with anybody. Because that's where I kind of have a general idea. I look at a lot of art. I look at a lot of art in a range of styles, from everything from video game art to classical pieces, and I look at kind of composition and things that really jump out at me, and I save all those in like a Pinterest board, and then Sara and I will go through them, and I could do this on my own too, but usually Sara and I go through them together, and we kind of like eliminate certain things that we don't think would fit as well for that particular story tone, because you want something. The cover is promising you what is inside the book. It's giving you kind of it's its own pitch in a way, to kind of give you a glimpse into what you're in for in the book. So like for Phased, the funny story about this cover, actually, which Sara did, originally this was not the cover. I had a bunch of ideas. I really wanted this kind of geometric, like wolf, ironically, this kind of geometric wolf face with like the forest underneath and some cool things here and there. And Sara made a version of that originally, and it didn't quite fit. And that was an example of me helicoptering the process too much. Because we ran it past a few people and they were like, well, this is reading a little bit middle grade, and it's just, I don't know if this is the right direction for that. So for this, after that, we scrapped the cover. Sara was very patient. We scrapped the cover, and I said, okay, Sara, I want to go back to the heart of this story, and what is this story about, and how can we portray that on the cover? And I want you to have more control over this process. What vision can we like both see for this? I'm giving the story of the face cover.
Yes.
Derek's question. So this was the second cover, is what I was saying.
Yes.
And so we went back to what are some of the key symbols within the story that we want on the cover. Let me put this. Whoop.
Wrong one. Here.
There we go. Okay.
Here, let's put you in a solo mode. There you go.
So this is some of the things that we talked about, is the duality between, you know, the nature versus the industrialism, city, etc., and the pull of the main characters between those two places. We talked about the moon, obviously, with werewolves is a massive motif symbol for this book, and the idea of the characters being chained to their past, chained, kind of trapped to the situation they're in. So we kind of took all of those things, and this is where I'm going to put her face back up here because I'm about to give her a compliment.
Uh-oh. Of course.
This is where, you know, Sara really took all of those images that were, for me, the important things of the story, and was able to create an amazing cover out of those. So you kind of have to start with your focal points. What are the things in the story that really matter? What are the like symbols, characters that really represent what story is happening, even if there's multiple POVs like there is in Phased. And you can kind of talk about, like with my current work in progress, Sara and I talked a lot about which cover was going to feature which character, and which character best represents that particular era of the trilogy. For Phased, when the second book comes out eventually, there's two main characters, and the second main character will be the focal point of the second cover. So, I mean, you can kind of start to pull what kind of things you want to have, like what things are you pulling out of the story to make focal points on the cover. I don't know if that made any sense, but that's kind of how we approached the Phased cover, and how we're also approaching the Legends of the Bruhai covers that are hopefully the first one's coming out later this year.
Yes, and I'm excited to get started on that cover.
It's going to be amazing. I'm so excited.
Yes.
Pinterest is a gem field for artists and writers, in my opinion. It's a great resource.
Yes. I know even for like the concept stage of the Bruhai, I think we've kind of thrown around like 5 or 6 ideas already, and I've done like some loose sketches, and like, well, do we want a scene or do we want a character? I mean, some of that too is based on like, okay, what are other people doing right now?
Right. Yeah, because you do have to take that into consideration to some degree, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's true, Derek, because I've had that experience too. Because like I said, with the Phased cover, my initial vision for what I wanted on that cover just it wasn't reading right for what the story was, and it wasn't giving the right sales pitch, if that makes sense.
Because and that was Gina, your editor, at the time that that pointed that out.
Well, she said it's reading middle grade, and when I like took an objective look at it, I was like, you're right. And you know, this is a very dark YA book. So I basically said, all right, here's what I, like is really important to me about this book. I'm going to quit helicoptering it.
Yes.
So yeah, and that turned out much better, shockingly. Sorry, I'm totally taking over comments.
No, you're fine.
All you.
No, I stepped out for a second. My husband is in snow removal, so he was supposed to be here today, but I can't control the weather, so
unfortunately, that's fine.
Yes.
I think that's a big thing to keep in mind, honestly, and I don't know if you would say the same, Sara, as the illustrator, but for me, the book cover is the sales pitch.
Oh, it is 100%.
As much, honestly, I would argue that that's more important than the blurb on the back.
Yeah, because in so many ways, like the cover, that's gonna be like, boom, that's gonna get my attention, and you can tell so much about what's inside the book by the cover. Generally, there are some. You
should be able to.
You should, yes. If your cover does not match what's inside the book, you have a problem.
Right.
So, and not like saying the you know, you can have your main character on there, but if it is if it's a cartoony style or something, or it's not really refined and whatnot, I'm not going to get the idea that it is for like an adult fantasy. You know, like when I hear adult fantasy, I want to see some very like gripping images, and like I want to see dramatic lighting, or I want to see things like expertly done. Now,
Epic.
if you have, yes, epic fantasy.
Right.
So yeah, I would 100% agree with that the cover really is kind of it's your first impression. It's your first impression.
Totally.
And, you know, that cover is probably what's going to get people to look at the blurb on the back.
Mm-hmm. I'm just adding to my stack of covers over here.
Hi, Kate. So that actually leads me perfectly right into the next question. It's almost like you planned that. So, have you ever bought a book just based on the cover or even the interior art?
A couple of times, yes, on the cover. I probably don't do that as much as a lot of other readers that I know, because to me, what is the story about? The cover will lead me to the blurb. If the blurb also impresses me and catches me, then I will buy the book. So there are certain covers that I bought, and I actually have one in my pile here that I bought specifically for the cover, because honestly, the cover told me everything I needed to know about the book inside. And I think for me, there's another book in this pile that I'm going to talk about in a minute that I literally walked past in Barnes and Noble for like probably 4 or 5, maybe 3-4 years. And I was like, every time I'd walk through the fantasy section, my eyes went straight to this cover. And I was like, I'm going to read that someday, because I really like this cover.
Yes.
Didn't know anything about what the book was about, quote unquote, but the cover told me everything I needed to know, and I loved it, and that was that.
Yeah. So would you mind sharing some of those covers with us?
So I pulled like 9 of these.
Oh, goodness. Okay. I have like 3. I have like 3. So you take it away. You show us what you got there.
Okay, well, the one that I'll show you guys right away that I bought for the cover specifically, this was a book outlet purchase a while back. Let's see, do we want me to
I'll do this. There you go.
I'm all by myself.
Yes, it's okay. You're lovely.
So this is the cover I purchased for the cover. So here's what's so cool about it. First of all, let's talk about that font. Love it.
Yes.
Font is also part of the cover and very important.
Oh, I feel like the font is severely underrated when people talk about the 100%. Importance, like the layout of it.
Yep, the layout of it, the style of font that you choose, and there's another one I'll pick up in a minute that'll illustrate my point for that even more. But this one tells me immediately that I'm looking at something that's probably going to give me Asian-inspired, possibly some Miyazaki, Studio Ghibli vibe feel to the story. We have probably a young protagonist. We've got probably magic going on. And here's the part of the cover that absolutely won me over.
Oh my gosh. I don't think I saw that part.
Right? It's like this kind of nature spirit vibe to it.
Yeah.
And this on the screen, in person, this cover is 100 times more beautiful than it's showing up on screen. I wish I had a better camera right now hooked up, because it's a stunning cover. So this was the one that I bought purely based on cover alone, and I do plan to read it. My TBR has gone nuts in the last year, so
yes.
But that cover is just, I love it so much.
I might actually pull in one of mine, because I have a feeling that we have one that are in the same.
Literally the next one on my stack.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. Okay, I'm throwing it up. I love this cover.
Yes.
And you know what? You talk about this cover real quick, and then I'll talk about what I love about this cover afterwards.
So, Mortal Techniques, first of all, is now on my favorite fantasy series list of all time. So if you haven't read this series by Rob J. Hayes, please go and do it if this sounds like something that you would enjoy. And this is the one that I was mentioning when we were talking about font.
Yes.
This gives me the font alone, even if I take, and I know it's a fantasy, if I take away the rest of the art and I'm just looking at the font, it already gives me that kind of gritty, blood splattered vibe that I, would want from a Asian-inspired Motley Crue dark fantasy book. And this book is all of that. It also tells me immediately that there is a Motley Crue involved, which is one of my absolute favorite tropes of all time. And each of the characters is incredibly distinct on the cover already. The color palette is one that I don't see a ton.
That's very true.
I like it a lot. And that's something you see repeated in the other two covers in this particular series. Pawn's Gambit and Spirits of Vengeance both have really beautiful color palettes along with the character design on the front.
And all three covers together look fabulous.
They look beautiful.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love this cover.
Oh, and I think what I appreciate about this is like you get kind of that forward character that takes the spotlight, but you get the rest of them sprinkled in too. And I love the spatial difference from the forward character to the back and how they kind of fade into the distance. But again, that cover, like the colors are amazing. And it really feels like you just like stepped out into a wheat field as the sun's going down. And
well, it gives you the immediate like environment of the story.
Yes.
Very quickly, which is another thing that I love when covers do that. I know what kind of a world and the feel of the world that I'm stepping into.
And I love the fact that the text is like not white or black. It is a variation of a color that works within the actual composition. And the way you have the birds are layered over top of that, the E and the R on the right side. I love that because when people actually integrate the text into it, that's a real sweet spot for me. Let's see here.
I was just noticing that question.
Yes. Covers that are all font, you know.
Go for it, Sarah.
Okay. I feel like on this one, it can be done well, but it has to be done very, very well. I can't necessarily say that I've seen a whole lot of covers that are exclusively font that I love. And to me, it doesn't really, it depends on the genre too. I wouldn't say that like, that if they're just fonts that it really speaks to like much of fiction really. Like if it's fiction, I want to see something more about the book. So
I don't actually have a ton of books I'm noticing on my shelves that are mostly font. And I think that probably answer that question a little bit. I'm trying to remember. So for example, like this one, I'm really excited to read this book. I'm very, very excited to read this book. However, this cover, like there's some cool details in the back. You've got like the kind of musketeer feel and you've got this kind of, you know, vague environment behind it. And I really love that. I wish I could see it. And that's where like the font, I think in this case, takes away from the cool features behind it. So I guess that would be an example. And don't get me wrong, I'm very excited to read this book. I can't wait. But so, and again, like I buy books not just for the covers, but that's definitely one that I think does it well that has more of a font focus, and I just pulled this one off too, is the Long Price Quartet, this omnibus edition, because this one I still like. I don't hate how much space the font takes up because of the color palette that it uses, which is much more vibrant in person than it is on the screen. But you've got a lot of details that immediately pull your eyes in, and unlike the previous one, it's really allowed to have its own space on the cover. So that one works a little bit better for me, I think.
Absolutely.
My shelves are falling apart. It's fine. Everything's fine.
I mean, I think what a lot of people miss is that the font is a part of the design element. So if you have kind of a generic, like a generic font, even if the font fits the overall vibe of the book, I feel like it has to be a really good font if you're going to just do just
Yep.
fonts. So
I mean,
that's
like Never Die is a great example of both, because I feel like the font gets a really great spotlight and it does well, but it doesn't take away from the characters and the color palette of the general scene. So.
Yes. Well, and this is actually something else that I've noticed. And I don't even think about it because I also do graphic design as well as illustration, but they really are two very different crafts.
Oh yeah.
So I wouldn't always say that illustrators can do the text as well. Sometimes you have to have two separate people do that.
Yes. Yep.
Let's see. Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with
you don't
that.
have like a character or an environment to spotlight in those.
Yes. And I feel like if you don't do and I've seen this a lot too where covers will have like just an element on there, so like a single like a sword or an emblem or something like that. And and not that those are bad, but I feel like you're missing a real opportunity to show a little bit of your world building through the artwork. So, I guess the immediate thing that comes to mind is like the Red Rising covers is like, and I know that the UK editions are different, but it's like I kind of get frustrated that it's so simplistic. It's like I want to see more.
Well, and these I think are not a good example of this. I pulled a couple that I think are, because this is actually a more simplistic cover style that I like. I love black is my favorite color. Yes. So I'm always very drawn to these very bold black covers with like a very specific focal point. I pulled a couple of other covers that I think actually pull that off really, really well.
Yeah, and I don't hate the covers.
Like, it's fine. I like it, but it's definitely like, and maybe it doesn't tell the same story.
Right. I think maybe, and that's for me, that's more of a personal preference. But it's hard to say because I guess
you're not allowed to have subjective opinions about art, Sarah.
I know. I just how dare I have an opinion, Okay, so I'm gonna show just a couple of
I saw one of the
covers
other
here.
ones you were gonna pull. I'm excited about it.
Yes.
Both of them.
Yes. So the Never Die, that one was done by Felix Ortiz. I know.
So good.
I know. And
also, can I just really briefly, I have quite a few Felix Ortiz covers in my.
You may not.
Okay, well, here's
go for it.
I don't know how the lighting is, but here's the other two covers in that series. Also, absolutely, and like again, that font that he uses in all three,
brilliant.
Just stunning use of font, stunning use of the font with the, because the design and the covers are done by two different artists, which I should mention. So Felix Ortiz did the artwork, and then STK Creations, did the design. That's a collaboration right there. So I wanted to highlight those.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I love Felix Ortiz's stuff. He's got a lot of really cool. I think he's really good at doing like all-encompassing scenes. He's kind of like got a little bit of like environment, character, creature, like everything in his work. So I feel like you can just hand that man anything and he'll pull something out.
Oh yeah. And he's done a lot of different color palettes, a lot of different like his style is very noticeable. You can see it Felix Ortiz cover from a mile away, but it has a different like style to each one. As far as color palette, you can tell what kind of a world it's in. But it's unmistakably Felix.
So I'm going to pull up another one here, and this one is by Charlie Bowater. And she does a lot more like YA covers. So, and I can definitely get that vibe even from this cover. But I love the way she uses light. She usually has amazing like contrast. So there's the contrast of colors, contrast of the lighting scenarios, and like her characters, like her style really revolves around like human characters and whatnot. So I absolutely adore her style. I first noticed her on the cover of Skyward, by Brandon
Okay.
Sanderson.
Yep.
So that was kind of where, like, I didn't choose the book because of the cover, but I kept looking at the cover like, I need to know who this artist is. And then all of a sudden I started noticing her covers on everything. So it was she's a really good example to where I feel like her style really sells a book.
Oh yeah. I love
So
that cover. I've read the book because that one that you have up now, The Enchantment of Ravens, is actually a book I read because of the cover.
okay.
So I have read
Nice.
that one.
Yes.
Not my favorite book. Absolutely beautiful artwork.
Yes. And then I'm gonna pull up one more here.
I love this one too.
I know it's like, let's just ogle over
Can I
art. It's
just
great.
can I just point out really quickly before you put this up that the color palette in all three of the covers that you chose is similar.
Yes. Yes, it is.
I just noticed that.
Well, and honestly, I this is horrible on my part. I was like, "Oh, I need to pick 3 covers," and I was, like, just looking for stuff, and I'm like, "I have to pick, like, 3 off the top of my head to share with people," and these were the ones.
I love that color combo.
Yes. So this one is by Randy Vargas,
Mhm.
and I forget, let's see, I think it's Songs of Chaos that this is
Yeah,
for.
so let me grab the first. Where did I put the first book? I have the first book right here, actually, which is also stunning. Ascendant Songs of Chaos, book 1. That one is the final book, and I'm trying to remember what the name of the final book is. I can't remember.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Yeah, and again, I like, it's always interesting too, because I think it's important for an artist to understand the project that they're working on, because you can tell that this is a wraparound
Yes.
cover, where all of that focus is on one side of the page.
Mhm.
But it's still done really well.
Mhm.
And
There's that
the
epic dramatic lighting.
yes, the dramatic lighting, the spatial difference, and
Mhm.
the detail. Like I can't remember when I discovered Randy Vargas's stuff, but it's
He's
like
so good.
he's very good. Very good. And this one is like, again, it's a different form of storytelling. Um and and I know earlier we had talked about how art plays into like the inspiration part of it, but really
Mhm.
I think a lot of the focus is on the marketing aspect. So that final cover is probably one of the most important pieces of artwork you would ever need for a book.
Yep. Yep.
But not to say you can't do interior illustrations too, because those are fun.
Yes, which speaking of which, if you guys haven't seen Thiago Abdallah's Shade of Madness, which is his book 2 in the Ashes of Averin, shout out Thiago. Sarah has a gorgeous griffin illustration in the front of that.
Let
That
me see
is
if I can find that.
amazing. And I'm
I
jealous it's not in my book, to be honest.
it's okay. You will have other ones that are just as cool.
That's a good thing. When you have other authors that are like, "Oh man, I wish that was in my book. That's so cool." Like, I don't even have griffins in my book.
It's like, I want this illustration just because I want it in my
'Cause I
book.
want it.
Yes. Oh, man. Oh, there it is.
Well, did you find it? Because otherwise I was
Yeah.
going to bring up another dragon cover.
No, I've got it right here. Just hang on
Okay.
1 second. Let me pull it up.
I'm impatient.
I know, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm horrible.
I still have like 6 books sitting here.
I'm sorry. Yep. So this is the one that I did for Chiago's book. That this is the
Mhm.
interior illustration for the front of the book. But
It's amazing.
I love
Again,
it.
the lighting makes this, and the lighting and the movement absolutely makes this.
Yes. Yes. And that, I think that's actually one of the fun parts about doing stuff in black and white is you
Yes.
can colors are great. I love colors, but they are sometimes distracting.
Mhm.
So when you get a chance to work in black and white and it's pure composition and lighting and everything, it's yeah, it's fun. It's fun. How did I get into cover design? So This is an interesting question for me because my very first book cover that I ever did, I did it when I was 15, and it is a hot mess. So it was more just all of it's been word of mouth. Like I don't have a degree, like a professional degree in graphic design or illustration. So most of it has been, oh, you're an artist. Can you do this for me? And like I always tell people I'm willing to try something at least once. So, and I know I've had a few projects come out lately where it's like, I've never done this. Like the Griffin is a perfect example. I have never done an epic scene before. And Chiago is like, I want this with like a battle scene. I'm like, I have never done a crowd of things in a battle scene before. I don't know how I'm going to pull this off. So a lot of this is just me flying by the seat of my pants over
I
here.
wish I could fly by the seat of my pants in art as well as you do. That would be like, yeah.
Well, and graphic design is a perfect example of how I kind of just fell into that because I was actually working for a garbage company at the time. And I mean, I had played with logos and stuff like that. And
yes, it is, Derek.
We had some phone book ads. There were some phone book ads for the garbage company. And I was like, these are really bad. So I'm Googling like basic principles of like graphic design. And it was like you really shouldn't use more than like 2 or 3 fonts in something, and the hierarchy of information. And it was like, I think we had this tiny little phone book ad. It was maybe like 1.5 by 2 inches, and there were 5 fonts and 3 different colors of fonts, and it was bad. So that was like my very first exposure to graphic design in like a professional setting, and then I dabble in it more and more. So like I did my own logo. I did all of Tori's stuff, and it's
any branding you see of mine is probably Sarah's handiwork. Like I think you've designed like 6 or 7 logos for me at this point.
Oh yeah. And I'm not complaining because I use it in my portfolio. So yeah. So yeah, a lot of that stuff is just kind of stuff I fell into. But it was fun.
I mean, when we did the faced cover, that was another thing. Like,
Chiago's totally out of my.
You were like, I don't know if I can do people.
Oh yeah.
And like that was what you told me, and I was like, you know what? Just give it your best shot. Let's see what you come up with.
Oh no, I didn't tell you. I didn't tell you that I don't think I could do people. I said I can't do people.
I was trying to be nice. But like if I love this cover, and you like completely knocked it out of the park. And I remember when you sent me the file, I was like, I thought you said you couldn't do people.
I couldn't.
Well, you
and
can.
At that point, that was the best. That was the best like human illustration I had done at the time. So you have pushed me out of my comfort zone so many times.
My job. It's written in the job description.
It is. It is. Anyway, I want to see a couple more of your covers though that you pick.
Well, not shockingly, this chunker came out immediately because, and I'll just show the dust jacket first. So the dust jacket is lovely.
I almost grabbed that image.
But
sorry.
I'm micromanaging back here.
Hands off the controls. I am the interviewer here.
But this is the naked hardcover.
That cover.
This is just a beautiful like scene cover. I would have loved to see like another little dragon or something back here, but that's just nitpicky on my part because like look at that. That's absolutely beautiful.
I love the colors of that.
So this one is another one, and it's honestly in that same color wheel of the ones we've been showing. Yeah. But I really loved. That's an example of a really beautifully done scene and allowing it to have the spotlight on your book that it deserves. Because honestly, if you have a piece like this, show it off.
Yes.
Put it everywhere. We were talking a little bit about, here's a slightly different color palette. This is a middle grade series that I'm reading with my son, my 10-year-old son right now. And these covers I absolutely love. These are
Oh,
the
yes.
Wing Feather Saga by Andrew Peterson. And again, this is middle grade. But if you look at the focal point of the cover, a lot of it's the same, right? You've got a font that fits the vibe of the story, and it also is allowed to take center stage in the section of the cover that it's in. But the dramatic lighting and all of the details. I mean, how often do we see this kind of an idea in a lot of epic fantasy covers where you get this little kind of like scene underneath a main character? I absolutely love this cover, and all 4 of the books in this series have covers in different color palettes, but with this same kind of style, and they're stunning. They're absolutely stunning.
One thing I love about those covers is that I feel like with middle grade artwork, a lot of people make this mistake that they, instead of like taking the artwork down to that level, they make it amateur instead. It's like you'll see a lot of
Less
middle grade
detailed, or
yes, you'll see a lot of middle grade books where it's almost like you don't know who this artist is, but it's like they couldn't quite level up enough, but that's who they have as their cover artist. And that sounds awful. That sounds awful. But what I love about the Wing Feather Saga books is that the style feels middle grade, but it doesn't feel amateur. I love that. I absolutely love that.
Well, and it doesn't feel overly simplified either.
No.
Which
Like
I love.
you get this like epic fantasy feeling, but
it's obviously middle grade.
Character, yes, the character design, like they brought it down to that middle grade level with the character design. I love that.
Interior design, we talked about briefly.
Yes.
I'm going to once again, like I have shown this book so many times on my channel. First of all, I love character focal points on my covers so much, and this tells me so much about this character without me ever opening the book. And Katie did such a beautiful job with the interior illustration and or design. This is the opening of the book, all of the chapter headings. Let me get to like beautiful map.
Yep.
And then even on the glossary of terms, like beautiful chapter headings. All of the chapters start with that same kind of design at the top. And like, this is definitely the full 9 yards. Like, I think you can do, like, here's the first chapter opening. How gorgeous is that? You don't have to go to this level to have a beautiful book, but I think it's an example of what is possible. And it's not like, it's honestly not as hard as I think a lot of people think it is.
No, I think more than anything, it's expensive.
Yeah, but I know Katie did a lot of her own interior design work with, you know, like programs that graphic design programs.
Yeah.
And I mean, it looks stunning. And it's the one that I always pull off my shelf. So yeah, she did a great job.
I feel like that extra flair.
Yeah,
can add,
even those little details can add a lot.
And it's like, it's obviously, it's not like a good cover and a good artwork will never replace a good story. Like understanding that if you're gonna get a book and you still want the story, you still want all of the things that you expect from a good book, but there's no harm in dressing it up.
Right.
Like it's just that icing on the cake.
So remember how earlier we were talking about the Morning Star cover for Red Rising and how it was an example of a really dark black focal point cover without that maybe didn't do what it could have?
Yes.
I pulled 2 that I really like because they give me more information about the book than the Red Rising covers. This is one. This one seems simple at first glance, but you can tell a lot of things about it. First of all, I already know that this book is going to be probably something revolutionary themed, right? This idea of rising up. And also there's going to be some kind of elemental magic in it of some kind. So it's doing a better job using that very severe focal point on a very basic background, I think better maybe than, and again, Red Rising is one of my favorite series of all time, so I'm not dissing it in any way, shape, or form. But this one I just feel like goes a little bit of that extra mile to showcase what the book is about, and you can tell more about it based on that.
Yeah, I love that.
The other one that I pulled that has the same thing is Richard Swan's The Justice of Kings.
Ooh, okay, hang on. Let me zoom in.
And this one, again, I think the font maybe is a little too much there, but I really love, I mean, the details of this. I don't know where else you would put it, to be perfectly honest.
I feel like that one's borderline in my book.
But this one, like, if you look at the detail of this, and again, you have a pure black background, and it just immediately pops in and just magnetizes your attention. And I love the contrast between the character and the statue behind, and the font matches with all of that. So I feel like this one, again, is an example of kind of what we were talking about with that just punches a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
And I promised the last one.
Okay.
Did the opposite, and that was the one that I kept walking past in Barnes and Noble. And this one, like, you just get weapon, and then this is the part that I really liked. I love that it had that kind of faded out silhouette, and this is kind of the opposite end of the black covers if you go all the way to the white covers, and the whole series is like this, so they look absolutely beautiful next to each other. And it's very simple, but it like really
I don't know that I
eye.
ever noticed that was on the cover. I mean, I don't have the books, so I've only seen like the passing glance that I've seen on like people's like social media feeds and whatnot, but I don't think I ever noticed that. So that's actually really cool.
Yep. And each one of, and like, it's not just a sword. It has like the, you know, the cool wolf motif on the pommel and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, lots of details. We love details.
Yes.
That's everything, I promise.
No, that's perfect. I'm going to have to cut this short pretty soon here because I have a very impatient child and my husband's not here. But
that's okay.
But I do want to close this out with a final question. If you could be proficient in any kind of art, what would it be? And it can be a medium, whether it's digital or watercolor, or it could be a subject like characters or environments.
I would do digital characters.
Yeah.
That would be honestly my if I could draw.
Yes. Well, knowing you and how you write your books, that makes sense to me.
That would be so helpful if I could just draw what I see my characters looking like. That would be amazing.
Yes.
I would not ask for anything else. But luckily I have you.
Well, and you know, one thing that I've loved about, I mean, obviously we've been best friends for 18 years, but like beyond just the best friends aspect, having your soulmate be a creative collaborator is an amazing experience.
It is. It's awesome.
We joke about the shared brain cell. So
it's real.
You don't have to finish a sentence before I understand what you're looking at in your brain. Or
usually you know what I'm looking at in my brain long before I do. And I'm just like, Sarah, can you please make sense of this?
Stop talking. Let me sketch it out.
I got it.
Yes. Yeah. So it's fun. So I have to thank you for being that for me, because it is absolutely one of the things that I live for, is being able to do that with you.
It's pretty awesome. Collaboration of art is so cool, and to do it with somebody that you've known for so long and who just gets you is great.
Yes. Well, I think that pretty much about wraps it up. Is there any final thoughts that you have, and any final thoughts people have in the comment section?
Thank you for having me on your channel. Yes. I think this is my debut on your channel, right? Is it? Or did we do a video like ages ago?
Yes, we did. We did a video ages ago, but you are the very first live interview on my channel. So thank you for being that for me, because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just cutting my teeth on this stuff. I'm flying by the seat of my pants in this too. So
well, you got to start somewhere.
Well, yeah. And I'm like, of course I'm going to have you on first, because I know we can talk. And we can fill the dead space. So
totally. Yeah.
Yes. So thanks for being on, Derek.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out with us, guys.
Yeah, you had a lot of great questions. A lot of great
Mhm.
questions. And this has been a fun discussion. I feel like we've covered a lot of good bases.
We have. There's a lot in this live stream. I'll be sharing it everywhere. Like, guys, if you want to talk, like, listen to some art discussion for fantasy covers.
Yes. So, obviously, oh shoot, I didn't put your channel in the description. That's bad on me. I will do that. I will do that right after this. So if you
I'm never coming on your channel again.
Yeah, so, like, after this stream ends, wait, like, 2 minutes, and I'm gonna put her channel in the description. I'm sorry, this is my first interview. Forgive me.
Fine.
So, if you are not subscribed to Tori's channel, please go do that right now. She's got a lot of great book reviews and art, like, author interviews and imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is fantastic. So, all those good things. All those good things. So, thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and we will see you in another video.
Thanks, guys.
Woohoo!
It's the part where we dance until it stops.
Until it ends. Okay, we got it.